Good morning. We're going to be shading our rhinoceros today, and we won't need very many materials. We're just going to need some color pencils. So what I have is a white pencil, kind of a peach color pencil, kind of a medium blue and dark blue pencil, and that's all we'll be needing for our project today. And we're going to be shading our rhinoceros. So when you look at the rhinoceros right now, it looks very flat, and the idea is to give it more dimension and have it pop out. So we're going to start by doing some shading. I'm going to also use this pinkier pencil for just parts of the nostril. Oh, and one other is I'm gonna brown pencil for the eye. So I'm adding two more pencils, brown, kind of a rusty brown pencil, and then a little bit more pink. So I have a few different shades here. And what we're going to start to work on are the lighter parts of the rhinoceros, and we're going to be using a white pencil. So what we're going to start off with, and you can hold your paper down with one hand, we're going to start with working on, and the idea is not to go over any of the marker lines. You want to still be able to see them. So we're going to go in a fold of the ear, in front and the one in the back. Just part of it, not all the way down. Okay, we're going to be going on the top of the head. Just the top part, not the entire side of that part of his head. And this would be the light, where the light would be shining on top of the head, so we want to kind of emphasize where that would be. And then we're going to do what looks like kind of a plate on the side of the face. So we're actually going to do the entire section here. Now, it's best to use color pencils instead of markers. Markers will get destroyed if you use them on a textured painted paper. You're better off using the pencils. You could use crayons, but pencils, I think I'd prefer. Okay, so we're doing that side. And already you start to see parts of the head kind of pop up. I'm going to do this section on just below the ear, and then we're going to do the horns. And I'm doing the front part of the largest horn, not the entire horn. So this smaller horn, I'm shading in all of it. The longer horn, I'm just kind of shading the left side and the bottom parts to our rhinoceros. Then I'm going to work my way in the front of the face. And I'm going along the mouth line just above it. And I'm going to curve around it and then go under. Now, my black outline is not as visible because the paint got on top of it, so I'm going to go over that with a darker colored pencil. Now I'm going to go just a little bit on the bottom of the head. I'm going to go up near the plate. I'll leave a little bit of space empty. And I'm just going to go along the bottom there. And I'm going to go around the eye. The top and the bottom. And a little bit in the front. So you can see what I did there. I went kind of around it in a curved shaded section on the front of the eye. Now I can always go back with some white, but I wanted to lay that down first before I continue. Now the back part of the ear is going to be slightly darker, so I'm going to use this medium color and see if I can get that to be a little bit darker. And yes, it's working very nicely. So I'm going to be shading in the left ear, the one that's further back. And you can see it's a bit darker. And also, before I started shading, I made sure that I sharpened all my pencils so that they are ready to go. So I'm going to go on the inside fold of the ear. And this is a great color. Now, if the color is too close to the blue that you've painted your rhinoceros, you're going to have to step it up and get slightly darker. You want to be able to see the darkness. So I'm just shading the left and the bottom part of the ear. And I'm going to be adding like a darker shade underneath the smaller horn. And I'm going over to the other horn and I'm shading just below that also. So you can visibly see how the light and darks pop out. Okay, so now I'm going to go right along behind the nostril. Oh, there's another area that I missed, so I'm going to go back over. And I'm going to go kind of shade like in an S shape, kind of a bizarre S shape, but it curves right behind the mouth. And I'm going to kind of shade just above the nostril a little bit. I'm going to leave some space. I'm going to have to go back in with my white, and I'm going to shade with my white around the nostril. Okay. Now there's some pink areas on the rhinoceros. I'm going to use my pink. Now you don't want it too bright. This is bright, but I can tone it down by using white over it to burnish it. Okay, so a little bit of pink, and then I'm just going to add some pink on the other part of the ear that I didn't shade with my darker blue. Okay, so to burnish it, you can use your white and just go over it, and it softens it ever so lightly. But it's not so bright. You want it to be subtle and not too bright. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to use my brown, and I'm going to go in this area that I did not color in, that I had left white. So now I've just colored that part in. Okay, so take your dark blue, get that back out, and what you're going to do is we're going to start adding some of the lines, all the folds that you see on the rhinoceros. As you can see, it still needs more detail. So we're going to go on the smaller horn, and you're going to add some curved lines. Some are a little shorter and some longer. And you're curving because that is the shape of a cone if you were to go all the way around it. So you're going to follow the form of this horn and give it the detail that it requires. Now we're going to go over to the larger horn, and again you're making curved lines. You're not doing straight because they're not flat. And you can see some are shorter and some of the curves are longer, and some are closer together and some are a little bit further further apart. And it still works nicely over the shaded color that you've done already. Okay, so let's go on the ear, a little smaller ear, and you can add a curve going up just slightly. And then we're going to kind of go along that line that creates the separation on the forehead. Now we're going to start to go just below the ear and into that section. And we're going to go behind the head. Again, you're following the curve of the body. Okay, and then we're going to go around the eye. Hi, Mookie. And you want to kind of emphasize the curves. He always is a curious cat when I'm doing my artwork. He likes to keep me company. And be mindful of where the curve lines are going. So we're going to go into this plate. And we're kind of just going to follow the direction on the plate. Gonna go right on the neck area and make some curves and see where the direction of the curves are going. You want to emphasize the folds on this big animal, this big creature. Excuse me. Okay, good. So now what I'm going to do is I did forget to get a black out. So see if you can find a black pencil. Let's see. So I'm going to use a black pencil. And I'm just going to go over some of the lines that kind of disappeared when I did my painting. So you're going to kind of just go right over the mouth line and emphasize those lines. And we're going to kind of shade. And I'm not pressing hard with the shadow behind the plate on this rhinoceros. I'm just adding a light section of black. And kind of look over and see if there are any other lines, perhaps the nostril, that disappeared when you were painting this amazing creature. And I'm just going to emphasize some of these lines a little bit more. Excuse me. Go over this part of the plate, not the entire section. I'm going to go over the eye and bring that up a little bit more. And you can see, just using the black pencil, how that excuse me, defines the lines that have been lost with the paint. And it looks like we have like a couple little lines just to show some, and you can do little lines right there on the tip of the ear just to show some texture. And I'm doing that on the smaller ear in the back. Just a few very short straight lines that are at an angle. Now, as you can see, you can already start to see what a difference just adding some shading will do. And I'm going to go back in with my blue pencil and kind of shade this a little bit more. I'm lightening up my pressure because I don't want it to be so dark. And I'm going to add another shorter line there. A little bit on the bottom part. I'm going to shade this in a little bit more. I'm going to shade it right up to the white in front of the eye. I'm going to go around the nose too. Now you can also go back in with your white, bring this up a little bit more. And I'm just going to go on the side of my horn just to make the horn a little bit more readily pop out. I'm going to go over the center part here. I'm going to lighten this side of the horn. See how that really makes a difference. And now I'm going to go around the nostril, just underneath the white, to make that really pop out too. Excuse me. Now, if I want it slightly darker, you could use the even darker blue just to emphasize some of the shadow a little bit more. And as you can see, that's working nicely. I'm going on the back of the neck just a little bit. And I'm going to take this darker blue over my black, and look how that really pops up. And I'm going to go along the bottom of the neck. I'm going to take that all the way down till you run out of space. I'm going to go back over this ear a little bit more. Okay. There you go. Big difference from flat, having it one hue, one value of blue, to bringing out multiple values, different shades of blue, to create more depth, more dimension on your animal. And it requires patience, always. Okay. All right. So another thing is if you have a really large section that is just kind of wasteland, what you could do is take a ruler and draw a straight line and then trim it down just a little bit if it's too big. Okay. And then I'm just gonna, or you could leave it that length. It's up to you. I'm just gonna trim this. It's a judgment call. Okay, there. Now if you wanted to trim a little bit on the other side, that's another option, so I might do that. Use my ruler and just go along the edge. I take my pencil and run it along the top part of my ruler, and then I'm going to trim this down a little bit. There. Okay, so there you have a shaded rhinoceros in complementary colors, and I hope you've learned something from this and enjoyed the process, and I will see you next time. Thank you.